The 8th week of the summer season has wrapped, and we're gonna jump right into talking about all of the shows, starting with the ones I don't have as much to update you on. Toaru Kagaku no Accelerator has been utterly ridiculous. It already was ridiculous, but it just keeps getting more absurd, and I honestly like the direction it's taking with the last 2 episodes because it's become much more action-focused, and while the action in the show isn't necessarily well choreographed or well animated, it is edgy and ludicrous. Just the powers that are used are not only cool and interesting in concept, but also just like the constant use of teleports behind you, makes all your blood explode out of your body. There's one part where a zombie girl is like using her hands to stop this gigantic like twirling grinder, and she's like, her hands are being like pulped by this thing. I will say the biggest problem I have with this show, with its action, is that they never show like the death. Like, they'll show lots of blood, they'll show people sort of like going off screen and dying, but they never show like on screen people getting killed, and I don't know why. Like, I don't know what difference it makes in terms of censorship to show blood versus actually showing somebody like getting hurt. I don't know if this is a censored version of the show and there will later be a gory version. I would love that, but yeah, I don't know. It stops a little short of being as badass as it should be, considering how much of the presentation is just over the top edge. But I was enjoying it. I've been having a good time. It's very much a, people say turn your brain off. I don't actually know how to do that, but I can at the very least say, well, that was stupid, but I don't care, and that's how I feel about this one. Lord el-melloi II Case Files, on the other hand, has gone less in the direction that I would prefer. I mean, I would say I enjoyed the last 2 accelerators more than the last 2 el-mellois, which is sort of the opposite of how it was before, simply because el-melloi has gotten to a point where it is difficult to follow. It is constantly introducing new things, new conceits, and, aside from the fact that I don't have, like, the best Fate knowledge to really even be able to keep up with a lot of things, like understand some of the underlying logic of why people act the way they do. Even just besides that, like, there's so many characters, so many factions, so many spells, so many abilities, so many rules governing all of those things. And, there's times where just something happens and you're like, what the fuck was that? And then the character's like, oh, it's because of this. And you're like, all right, I guess that's why. I guess that it's because of that, Do I care? Is that interesting? Is that important? I don't know. It's fun sometimes. I mean, this newest episode particularly had just like a non-stop string of new concepts being introduced. And then we've got like Iskander's, I guess, right-hand woman who wants to kill Waver for some reason. Here's another thing of why it's been bothering me, is that the artwork, it's not that it's necessarily like gotten worse so much as that the new characters who have been introduced have some of the worst designs. I never expected to see this. Like, the character designs of the main cast are all great. They're very much in line with Fate, which traditionally had really excellent character designs, but a big part of why it's so famous. The new ones are hideous. There's this one girl with this giant fucking spiked out hair that looks like a bad Nanoha side character. There's just lots of people who just look awkward or bad. And also, I've been on and off how I felt about the backgrounds in this show, because they look fine. They're very digital. They all have like these texture patterns on all the walls and floors and everything. And the biggest problem with them is that the character art doesn't always look correct on the backgrounds. The backgrounds might have like digital lighting effects and all this, these weird textures that are very detailed, and the characters are like very basic two-tone shading. It looks a little awkward depending on the background. Well, the backgrounds on the train have really kicked this up, particularly the hideous design of the floors and curtains. I don't know what the fuck they were thinking with that pattern. It looks awful. Any shot that has too many like characters and patterns just becomes a visual mess. So yeah, it's like, it's not that the visuals have necessarily downgraded so much as just the new design elements that we're seeing a lot of are not good. The Iskander, right-hand woman or whatever, she looked terrible. Yeah. So all around, this episode, the latest two really, were like kind of a jumbled and confusing mess. I like some of the ideas, like that this train is like some weird lawless fucking mage murder train where mages come to murder each other and transport, I guess, like illegal cargo or something. It's like a black market train of the mage world. That's kind of neat. Some of the powers and abilities, again, are cool to watch, like, incidentally as they're happening, but just like actually trying to follow all of this is getting difficult. And like, one of the good things about earlier episodes is that they were all self-contained stories. You didn't need to, juggle all these balls in your head. You could just watch the episode, and by the end of it, even if you had been confused for a lot of it, you will understand it by the time things wrap up. When you have a longer arc where things aren't wrapping up and it just keeps introducing more stuff, you're like, by the end of this, I'm not even sure if I'm going to know what was going on in the first place. Given has continued to be great. It's just a fun, character-driven, low-key drama. The episodes can be a little bit slow, particularly the one where our strawberry-haired guy, I don't remember his name, is just sort of soul-searching, looking inside himself to try to come to terms with the dark elements of his past. There's like sequences that are just kind of showing him moping around for a few minutes on end. Not the most exciting part of the episodes, but I like the dynamics between the characters, what it's introducing by revealing the traumatic past of that character and how everybody else has to kind of deal with this and relate to it, diving more into the pasts of the side characters and what they're all about. It occurred to me while watching this one that this show really feels like what I call a Yuritopia story. Like a lot of Yuri manga, basically all the characters are female and all gay. Like it just so happens that everyone is a lesbian. They will all be paired off by the end of the manga. And, a significant amount of it is usually just kind of cute girls doing cute things. As they develop romantic feelings, it gets a little more dramatic and then leads to a bunch of relationships. Given kind of feels like that, particularly like I kept comparing it to K-On! Because it really did feel like, cute boys doing cute things to an extent. The characters are a little bit more mature than most, Yuritopia kind of stories, especially because two of them are college students, the high school boys are also, one of them's much more intelligent than usual. So like, I would say that it doesn't quite feel exactly like that, but the atmosphere, the tone of the show of just like, a bunch of boys just like having a good time, hanging out, being friends. It's got that kind of Iyashikei soothing nature to it. And then, it turns out all of them are gay. They're all getting kind of paired off into these relationships. And even though there is some kind of weighty drama to what's going on, there is a suicide in the backstory of this show. It's heavier stuff than you might expect from most of these kinds of stories. But like, what it's leading to is a very like careful, not overly melodramatic, but really kind of low-key drama. Like there's not a bunch of screaming and characters like bursting into tears all the time or anything like that. It's much more nuanced. There's more conversation, there's more characters being like, hey man, I see what you're going through, let me help you out, kind of thing. It's just it's nice. It is a very nice show. I have not seen another BL show that felt like this before personally. Usually there's like more conventional tropes that seem to go into those shows. So it could just be that, me comparing it to a Yuritopia show is just the sheer fact that it's, just different enough from a typical BL show that it feels like this. Or maybe I just haven't read enough BL. But either way, I enjoy the show. I think it's great. I love all the characters. I will be watching it till the end, which apparently it only has 11 episodes. So I'm guessing it's probably just going to lead up to their first concert performance. I don't know how long the manga is, so I'd have to look into that. The couple of shows I usually talk about that I'm mostly going to skip out on this week. First, Vinland Saga, partly because I haven't seen episode 8 yet. It was released not long before I started recording this, but I wanted to get it out there. And I have a bigger video planned about episode 7, particularly talking about the artwork. Because, right now, Vinland Saga, it's in an odd place since obviously it's an adaptation of the manga that did things a little bit out of order. We just finally covered chapter 1 in episode 7. I'm less interested in talking about like the plot developments at this point in the story, and more just in really comparing the anime versus the manga, and kind of, trying to decide if I really want to keep watching the anime, because for a few reasons I just don't think it's as good. I think that the manga is the preferred treatment, but it's not that I think the anime is bad. Like, I think it's good. I think it's possibly worth watching, but I have a longer video about that, particularly talking about episode 7 and the artwork that I will release whenever I get around to editing it. And it's like a 30-minute video. It goes pretty in depth on the history of animation techniques and things like that. Anyway, also, good old-fashioned Ari Ferreira became madness again in episode 6, and I might need to do another in-depth video about it. There's just a lot to pull apart. I already talked about it a little bit with my SAO versus Ari Ferreira, which is worse video, which is more of a general, just, talking about the two shows and kind of just mentioning the fact that Ari Ferreira has gone completely insane again. But yeah, it deserves an in-depth breakdown. The long and short of it is they introduced a stupid bunny girl to the main cast, and she is terrible. She is an absolute meme character, a poor man's Aqua from Konosuba. Generally just a bad and baffling and hyper condensed episode that deserves the full treatment, because there's nothing I could say here that would give justice to it. If you're not watching Ari Ferreira, you either gotta watch it and see for yourself, or hold out till I make the videos really going into how crazy it gets. Anyway, that just leaves us with the best anime of the season, easily, hands down, Dr. Stone. Episodes 7 and 8 were fantastic. I love all the new characters that have been introduced. I love the idea of Senku finding this village and sort of trying to infiltrate it so that he could teach them about science and build his kingdom of science around this community. So I will say, it is a little weird the way that Taiju and Yuzuriha have basically exited the story. They are not relevant anymore. They're off doing their own thing, chasing the guy. I assume they'll be back eventually, but for now, we're focused on Senku and this village that he's found thanks to this hot blonde girl. And this is obviously like the best idea for where to take the story, because there wasn't so much they could have done with those few characters. Like, introducing a whole lot of new characters at once opens up what is possible with the story, what kind of roles can be filled in building a society, taking us through to the next stage of ingenuity of what the characters are going to do. And right away, we're introduced to a really fun character, this guy who is a Stone Age scientist, essentially. He considers himself a magician because he does, or a mage, a magus, something like that. I don't remember the exact word he used, but he, sees himself as someone who is doing magic because he's constantly experimenting with things and trying to learn and develop these skills. And he's basically got the same mentality as Senku had as a kid. He just doesn't have access to the information that Senku had. So when Senku shows up and shows him like real science, this guy is like blown away. And it's like, oh my God, like this is obviously what I need to dedicate myself to, So he's right on board as like his number 2 guy. And moreover, the girl who he likes, who is also the older sister of Hot Blonde Girl, is another hot blonde girl in the village who has a disease of some sort. And so Senku wants to help the village by developing medicine, giving them, newer technologies, basically enticing them with science so that they will join his side. But the village is staunchly against anybody coming in, and this is a really genius way of slowly introducing us to a whole lot of characters who are all in one place. Because by locking Senku out of the village and only allowing him to interact with like a small handful of characters, we're slowly being drip-fed information about all the characters in the village and the customs of the village, the nature of it, without ever having to just like stop for an exposition dump. Like we're progressing the story in a fun and exciting way where our characters have tasks and things to do, but like so in episode 7, we had met the scientist guy. We learned the basic situation of the sick girl. In episode 8, we have this girl, Suika, whose name I remember because she has a watermelon on her head. hence the name Suika, which is Japanese for watermelon. And she is fucking adorable. She seems like, she kind of reminds me of Yoko Taro, and combined with like a Zelda character, because she can like go into her watermelon to spy on people. It's hilarious. And Suika is basically just this adorable little girl who wants to be helpful. So, the fact that she kind of gets introduced, and then they're like, all right, well, Suika, we want you to stake out the village and find out what people want so that we can create it through science and entice them to want to let Senku in. So through her spying on the villagers, we get to see a lot of them, learn little bits of their personality. There's these 3 insanely fucking hot sisters. All the girls in the series are unfucking believable. Like, this has some of the hottest girls in shonen history, probably. I can't wait for the artwork to start coming out from this. I assume there's probably some already, since it was a popular manga. But yeah, the girls are just like frustratingly beautiful. You look at them and you're like, why aren't they just in porn? Why is this not pornography? Is a question I'm constantly asking myself as I watch it. Why isn't this just porn? Because that would, as much as I love the show, that would bring it to another, just insert some pornography into it. That's my request of the author. Anyway, I know I'm not getting that. But yeah, otherwise, it's a fucking great show. All the science is super interesting and fun. It's very like, it's like basic science stuff, I guess. Like, I don't know shit about science. I don't know chemistry experiments. I don't know how, they make millet and fucking ramen out of millet. And it's just like fun to see the characters, to see Senku like introduce like, all right, we're going to make this thing. And like, it's going to be complicated, but not as complicated as you think. Like, we can do it with the technology at our disposal. And so like, and the means at our disposal, he figures out like, all right, based on what we've got, what can we do? And the scene of him making ramen in episode 8 is hilarious, especially like all the characters eating it and loving it. And then him eating it and being like, yeah, this is garbage, but like, I understand why they like it so much. Setting up a ramen stand to get into people's hearts. I mean, you all know how much I love using food to get to the hearts of people. Considering my favorite scene in Log Horizon revolves around that. But yeah, it was just a delightful couple of episodes. I love all the new characters. I love the setting. I love how everything looks. I like that we've slowed down the story a little bit to like get more in, like the story started off pretty fast. Like, we unlocked our main villain right away. It was much more like plot driven. Now it's definitely slowed down considerably. It's clearly in for the long haul, and so but like, ordinarily slowing down would be boring, but in this case, just because it's introduced so many interesting characters, it's like, I just want to see them build a civilization. I just want to see these guys hang out. I just like them. I just think they're cool. A lot of hot girls and guys with cool fucking personalities. So yeah, Dr. Stone has been absolutely excellent, highly enjoyable, definitely my favorite anime that has been airing this season consistently, week after week. That's it for this episode of this week's anime. Keeping it a little shorter because I already wrote scripts about, again, Vinland Saga. Possibly we'll do another one on Ari Ferreira. And there still hasn't been an episode 2 sub of Business Fish, as far as I know. So what the hell? Where's my Business Fish? That's it. See you in the next one.